Kang Dohan had a plan. It was a terrible plan, but it was his terrible plan, and he was committed to it with the kind of stubborn determination that had made him the youngest alpha to ever lead the Kangpak security forces, and also the same stubborn determination that had once made him eat an entire watermelon, rind included, because his cousin dared him. "You're going to regret this," said his best friend, Park Jae-sung, lounging on Dohan's bed like a starfish in a designer suit. "I want that on record. I want it written down. I want it carved into stone and placed at the entrance of your future miserable home." "Noted," Dohan said, adjusting his ceremonial robes in the mirror. The deep black fabric was embroidered with silver thread, traditional alpha mating ceremony garb. He looked, if he was being honest, absolutely incredible. His broad shoulders filled out the robe like it was painted on. His sharp jaw could cut glass, and his dark eyes had that smoldering intensity that had made no fewer than 17 Omegas faint at last year's autumn gala, which was precisely the problem. "Run it back for me one more time," Jae-sung said, holding up his phone to record. "I want to have this for the documentary I'll eventually make about your downfall." Dohan sighed. "The elders say I have to participate in the mating ceremony. Pack law. Every unmated alpha of age must attend at least one ceremony before they turn 30, or they lose their position. Right? And you're 29 and 11 months. I've been busy. You've been avoiding it like it's a tax audit." "I've been strategically busy," Dohan corrected. "But now I'm out of time, so I have to go. But here's the thing." He turned from the mirror with the confident smile of a man who thought he was a genius. "The ceremony is blind. The alphas are blindfolded. You walk in, you're guided to an Omega, and you scent them. If the scent matches, the bond begins. Yes, I know how mating ceremonies work. I went to middle school. So," Dohan continued, undeterred, "all I have to do is pick an Omega that I'm clearly incompatible with, someone whose scent doesn't match mine at all. The bond won't take, we'll both walk away, and I'll have fulfilled my obligation. The elders can't say I didn't try." Jae-sung stared at him. "And your plan for ensuring you pick an incompatible Omega is?" Dohan's smile widened. "I told grandmother I wanted to be matched with the least attractive Omega available." The silence that followed was so profound that Dohan could hear the clock ticking in the hallway, the wind outside, and possibly the sound of Jae-sung's respect for him evaporating. "You," Jae-sung started. "Before you say anything, you told your grandmother. It's strategic. The woman who literally runs the matchmaking committee." "Exactly. She has access to all the profiles. That you want an ugly Omega?" Dohan winced at the volume. "I didn't say ugly. I said aesthetically challenged. And it's not because I'm shallow. It's because I figure if the Omega isn't conventionally attractive, they're probably also not a strong genetic match for me, which means the scent bonding won't work, which means you're an idiot. Which means I'm free." Jae-sung sat up, his expression the kind of weary disappointment usually reserved for parents watching their child make the same mistake for the 40th time. "Dohan, buddy, light of no one's life, you do realize that physical appearance has absolutely nothing to do with scent compatibility, right? That's literally day one biology class." "Of course I know that," Dohan said, though the slight twitch in his left eye suggested he had, in fact, been absent that day. "But it's about probability. Work with me here. I would rather work with a brick wall. The wall would at least have structural integrity." Dohan clapped his friend on the shoulder with the force of a man who bench-pressed small cars for fun. "It's going to be fine. I go in, I sniff someone, nothing happens, I leave. Easy. Simple. Done." "And what about the Omega? The one your grandmother specifically selects for you? The one who's going to show up to a mating ceremony thinking this is their big day, only to be rejected by a 6'2" wall of muscle and bad decisions." This gave Dohan the briefest moment of pause. He wasn't a monster. He was just a very desperate alpha who really, really didn't want to mate. Not because he had anything against Omegas, he didn't. He just had everything against being told what to do. The pack elders had been breathing down his neck for years. "Mate, Dohan. Produce heirs, Dohan. Stop intimidating all the Omega candidates by bench pressing during interviews, Dohan. I'll be nice about it, he said. I'll let them down gently. Buy them dinner. Send flowers. You're going to reject someone at a sacred mating ceremony and then send them flowers? Nice flowers. The expensive kind. With one of those little cards. Jae-sung lay back down on the bed and covered his face with a pillow. I'm going to need therapy. Not for me. For whoever this poor Omega is. On the other side of the city, in a modest apartment that smelled like lavender and quiet rage, Seo Yihan was having a crisis. I'm not going. You're going, said his roommate, Choi Min-jun, who was currently trying to wrestle Yihan into a ceremonial Omega robe the color of moonlight. I will literally jump out the window. We're on the first floor. I'll jump very dramatically. Min-jun, a beta with the patience of a saint and the upper body strength of someone who'd been manhandling his stubborn Omega best friend for the better part of a decade, finally managed to get Yihan's left arm through the sleeve. There. See? Not so bad. Han looked down at himself. The robe was beautiful. Ivory silk with delicate gold embroidery, cinched at the waist, flowing to the floor. It was the kind of garment that made Omegas look ethereal, delicate, and romantically available. Han looked like an angel had gotten into a fight with a fabric store and lost. Not because he was ugly. Oh no, that wasn't the problem at all. The problem was that Seo Yihan was, by any objective measure, absolutely, devastatingly, catastrophically beautiful. His face was the kind that launched ships, started wars, and caused traffic accidents. Wide eyes the color of warm honey, set beneath elegant brows. A nose that could have been sculpted by a Renaissance master on his best day. Lips that were full and naturally pink and curved in a way that made people forget their own names. His skin was luminous. His hair was a waterfall of dark silk, and his body, currently hidden beneath the voluminous ceremonial robes, was the kind of lean, graceful figure that made people walk into lamp posts. He was also completely, utterly, furiously uninterested in being mated. Remind me again why I'm doing this, he said, glaring at his reflection like it had personally wronged him. Because your mother called the pack elders and told them you've been too shy to register for ceremonies, and they put you on the mandatory participation list. I'm going to put her on a list. And because, Min-jun continued, if you don't attend at least one ceremony, you lose your research grant. Pack funding rules. All unmated Omegas of age must. Yes, participate in the archaic meat market or lose everything you've worked for. I know. Yihan slumped into a chair, managing to look simultaneously tragic and stunning. It was infuriating. Even his sulking was photogenic. I just wanted to finish my dissertation in peace. Is that so much to ask? The effects of urban development on pack migration patterns. That's my passion. That's my love. I don't need an alpha. I know. Alphas are loud and they smell like pine trees and bad decisions. I know. The last alpha who tried to court me sent me a dead deer. A dead deer, Min-jun. Left it on my doorstep like a cat bringing home a bird. To be fair, that is considered a traditional. It was wrapped in a bough. A red bough. Like a Christmas present. From hell. Min-jun bit his lip to keep from laughing. Look, here's the thing. The ceremony is blind. The alpha won't even see you. They'll just scent you. And if the scent doesn't match, then nothing happens, and I go home. Ahan's eyes narrowed. What are the odds it actually matches? Scent compatibility is incredibly rare. Like 1 in 1,000. More like 1 in 500, but sure. So I have a 99.8% chance of walking out of there unmated. Those are excellent odds. Yihan stood up, squaring his shoulders with the determination of a man walking to his own execution but determined to look good doing it. Fine. I'll go. I'll stand there. Let some knucklehead alpha sniff me. We'll be incompatible. And I'll be home in time for the documentary about deep-sea octopuses. That's the spirit. But I swear to every deity listening, if I end up mated to some thick-necked alpha who thinks reading is a type of exercise, I will burn this city to the ground. Min-jun patted his shoulder. Noted. Now hold still, I need to do your hair. Don't make me look pretty. Yihan, you could shave your head, roll in mud, and put on a garbage bag, and you would still make grown alphas weep. There's nothing I can do about your face. I didn't make it. Complain to your parents. Han groaned. Kang Dohan's grandmother was a terrifying woman. At 4'11", elder Kang Soo-jin had the physical stature of a garden gnome and the spiritual energy of a Category 5 hurricane. She had been running the PAC's matchmaking committee for 40 years, and in that time, she had arranged 312 successful matings, broken up 47 ill-advised dalliances, her words, and once made an alpha warlord cry by telling him his posture was an insult to vertebrates everywhere. She was also the only person on Earth who could make Kang Dohan feel like he was 5 years old and had just been caught eating crayons. "Grandmother," Dohan said, kneeling before her in the pre-ceremony preparation room, "did you receive my request?" Elder Kang looked at him over her reading glasses. She was reviewing a stack of papers that Dohan suspected were Omega profiles but could also have been his emotional death warrant. "I received your request," she said, in the tone of someone who had received a bag of flaming garbage on their doorstep and was deciding how to return it. "And you asked me to pair you with, how did you phrase it? An Omega who won't distract you with their appearance." "Yes, you asked me, your grandmother, who has dedicated her life to the sacred art of matchmaking, to find you an ugly mate." "I didn't say ugly. You said, and I quote, someone I won't be tempted to look at twice." Dohan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. That could mean many things. "It means you think you're clever." She set down her papers. "You think that if I pair you with an Omega you find unattractive, you'll have an excuse when the scent bonding doesn't work. You think you can waltz into a sacred ceremony, go through the motions, and walk out without fulfilling your duty to this pack." "I wouldn't say waltz. You would foxtrot, perhaps?" "Grandmother." She held up one tiny, perfectly manicured hand, and Dohan's mouth snapped shut like a mousetrap. "I have selected your match personally," she said. "I have taken your preferences into account." Something about the way she said preferences made Dohan's survival instincts tingle. It was the same feeling he got right before an ambush during security operations. A prickling at the back of his neck that said something is wrong, and it's probably going to involve pain. "You have?" he asked carefully. "Oh yes." She smiled. It was the kind of smile that a spider might give a fly if spiders could smile, which, in Dohan's opinion, they probably could. "I think you'll find your match to be exactly what you asked for." "Thank you, grandmother." "Don't thank me yet, dear." She returned to her papers. "Now go. The ceremony begins in 1 hour. And Dohan, yes, try not to embarrass the family." "When have I ever?" "Last harvest festival. You arm-wrestled the ceremonial table in half. That table was structurally unsound, and I maintain." "Go." Dohan went. The grand mating hall was exactly as ostentatious as its name suggested. A cavernous space draped in red and gold silk, lit by 1,000 candles, smelling of ceremonial incense and the barely contained anxiety of 24 unmated wolves pretending they weren't terrified. Alphas on one side, Omegas on the other, a silk curtain between them, thin enough to let scent through but thick enough to prevent any peeking. Dohan stood in line with the other alphas, blindfold already in place over his eyes. The thick black silk blocked out all light, leaving him in a darkness that smelled like candle wax, nervous alpha pheromones, and someone's truly aggressive cologne. "Dude," he muttered to the alpha next to him, "are you wearing an entire bottle of Midnight Howl?" "It's Moonlit Prowl, actually," the alpha whispered back, offended. "It's supposed to attract Omegas. It's attracting my gag reflex." "Silence," barked the ceremonial officiant, an elderly beta woman with a voice like a drill sergeant. "The sacred matching will now begin. Alphas, you will be guided forward one at a time to meet your assigned Omega. You will scent them. If the bond resonates, you will feel it. If not, you will both be free to leave. This is a sacred tradition, and I expect you all to behave with dignity and respect." She paused. "That means you, Kang Dohan." "What did I do?" Dohan protested. "Nothing yet. I'm being preventative." A ripple of quiet laughter went through the line. Dohan gritted his teeth behind his blindfold. One by one, alphas were led forward. Dohan could hear the proceedings, the rustle of robes, the soft murmurs of the officiants guiding each pair together, and occasionally, the sharp intake of breath that meant a scent match had occurred. Twice, he heard the telltale sound of an Omega gasping, followed by the deep, possessive rumble of an alpha whose instincts had just gone haywire. Not going to be me, Dohan told himself. Whatever homely, sweet, completely wrong, for me Omega grandmother picked. I'm going to politely sniff them, feel nothing, and go home. Kang Dohan, the officiant called. His stomach did something it had never done before. It flipped. Kang Dohan's stomach did not flip. Kang Dohan's stomach was a fortress of iron will and protein shakes. It did not flip, flop, or do anything remotely acrobatic. And yet, a hand gripped his elbow, one of the ceremony guides, and led him forward. His footsteps echoed on the marble floor. He could hear the silk curtain being drawn aside. He was guided through into the Omega's side of the hall. The scent hit him like a freight train. Not immediately, it started subtle. A whisper, like the first breath of spring after a brutal winter. Something light and sweet, threaded with something deeper, warmer. Honey and rain. Sunlight on warm skin. Old books, and was that lavender? Dohan's feet stopped moving. His brain, which had been running a very organized PowerPoint presentation titled Operation Don't Get Mated, suddenly experienced a catastrophic system error. The slides scrambled. The fonts changed to Comic Sans. Someone spilled coffee on the keyboard. Keep moving, the guide whispered, tugging his arm. I'm moving, His voice sounded weird. Was his voice always that hoarse? I'm moving. He was guided to a stop. Someone was standing in front of him. He could feel their warmth, not touching but close. Close enough to scent properly. The Omega's scent wrapped around him like a silk ribbon, and Dohan's inner wolf, the part of him he kept firmly leashed behind walls of rationality and sheer bloody-mindedness, sat up, ears perked, tail wagging like a golden retriever who just spotted its owner after a long day. No, Dohan told the wolf. Absolutely not. Sit down. Stay. The wolf did not sit down. The wolf was doing backflips. You may now scent your match, the officiant said. Dohan leaned forward, blindfold still firmly in place, and inhaled. The world ended. Or at least, the world as Dohan knew it. The organized, controlled, stubbornly independent world he'd built like a fortress around himself, crumbled like a sandcastle in a tsunami. The Omega's scent was perfect. Not just compatible. Not just pleasant. It was the olfactory equivalent of coming home after 1,000 years of wandering. Every single cell in Dohan's body lit up like a switchboard, screaming in unison. This one. This one. This is the one. Oh no! Dohan whispered. From the Omega he heard a small, strangled sound, like someone who'd just stepped on a Lego but was trying to be polite about it. Oh no! The Omega whispered back. The officiant's voice cut through Dohan's existential crisis like a knife through butter. The scent bond has been acknowledged. Both parties have responded. The blindfold may now be removed. Dohan's hands were shaking. His hands did not shake. His hands could field strip a weapon in 12 seconds flat. They had held the line against rogue wolves, carried injured pack members to safety, and successfully assembled IKEA furniture without instructions. They did not shake. They were shaking. He reached up and pulled the blindfold off. The candlelight was blinding for a moment. He blinked, squinted, and then he saw the Omega standing before him, and Kang Dohan experienced what could only be described as a full factory reset of his brain. The Omega was, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, standing in front of Dohan, bathed in golden candlelight, drowning in an ivory silk robe that made him look like a painting from a museum that charged $100 for admission, was the most beautiful person Dohan had ever seen in his 29 years and 11 months of life. Wide honey-colored eyes stared up at him, framed by thick, dark lashes. A face so perfectly structured it made Dohan's chest physically hurt. Pink lips parted in shock. Dark hair falling in soft waves around a slender neck that Dohan's hindbrain was already screaming at him to mark, claim, protect, mine. Shut up, Dohan screamed internally at his wolf. We had a plan. The wolf did not care about the plan. The wolf had abandoned the plan. The wolf had taken the plan, shredded it, set it on fire, and was now dancing on the ashes. You, Dohan started, then stopped, because his voice had apparently left his body and been replaced by the vocal equivalent of a dial-up internet connection. He cleared his throat. The Omega's eyes, which had been wide with the same horrified recognition that scent compatibility brought, suddenly narrowed. I'm what? You're not. Dohan's mouth was moving without consulting his brain, which was still offline. I was told, grandmother said. You're not supposed to. The Omega's eyebrow rose. Slowly, dangerously. It was, Dohan realized, the single most intimidating eyebrow he had ever encountered, and he had once been stared down by a rival pack alpha with an actual scar over his eye. I'm not supposed to what? The Omega asked, in a voice like honey poured over broken glass. Don't say ugly. Don't say ugly. For the love of all that is holy, do not. You're not supposed to be this pretty, Dohan blurted. Silence. The kind of silence that followed a bomb going off. The kind of silence where you could hear the universe rearranging itself to accommodate the sheer magnitude of what had just been said. The Omega stared at him. Dohan stared back. The officiant, standing 3 feet away, looked like she was trying very hard not to either laugh or call security. Dohan tried to recover. That came out wrong. Did it? The Omega's voice could have frozen lava. Because it sounded like you were expecting someone ugly and are disappointed that I'm not. No. Yes. Wait. Dohan ran a hand through his hair, destroying the carefully styled look his grandmother's assistants had spent 45 minutes on. I asked my grandmother to match me with someone who wasn't. Look, I had a plan. A plan that involved being matched with an ugly Omega? It wasn't about ugly. It was about incompatibility. So you assumed ugly people would be incompatible with you. That's worse. Dohan opened his mouth, realized the Omega was right, and closed it again. He looked like a very handsome fish. The Omega crossed his arms. Despite being a full head shorter than Dohan and approximately half his width, he managed to project the energy of someone who could destroy him in every way that mattered. Let me get this straight. You're the alpha who specifically requested a... What was the phrase the matchmaker used? An Omega who won't distract you with their appearance? Dohan's blood ran cold. She told you that? She told me I was being matched with an alpha who had specific aesthetic preferences. The Omega's lips thinned. I assumed you wanted someone pretty, because that's what most alphas want. But no, you wanted someone ugly, so you could reject them without feeling bad about it. When it was laid out like that, in the golden candlelight of a sacred ceremony hall, with 24 other wolf pairs watching from the periphery, Dohan realized with crystalline clarity that he was, in fact, the worst person alive. I'm a terrible person, he said. Yes, you are. I didn't mean it like... It was supposed to be about scent compatibility. You thought ugly Omegas would smell bad? No. Oh God. This is so much worse out loud. You're right. It is. The Omega turned on his heel, robes swishing dramatically. I'm leaving. Wait. Dohan's hand shot out before his brain could stop it and caught the edge of the Omega's sleeve. The moment they touched, even through fabric, a jolt of electricity shot through Dohan's arm like he'd grabbed a live wire. The Omega froze too, shoulders going rigid. They stood there for a moment, the bond between them humming like a high-voltage power line. Let go of my sleeve, the Omega said quietly. I would love to, Dohan said equally quietly. But my hand isn't listening to me. The Omega turned his head slowly, looking at Dohan's hand on his sleeve, then up at Dohan's face. Your hand isn't listening to me. You want me to believe that a grown alpha, the head of pack security, cannot control his own hand. I'm having a really weird day, despite everything. Despite the insult, the embarrassment, the absolute circus of the last 5 minutes. The corner of the Omega's mouth twitched. Just barely. A ghost of amusement that vanished so quickly Dohan might have imagined it. My name, the Omega said, is Seo Yihan. I'm a doctoral researcher in urban pack dynamics. I have a 4.0 GPA, 2 published papers, and absolutely zero patience for alphas who think scent compatibility is based on appearance. Kang Dohan, Dohan replied, because his mouth had apparently decided to start functioning again. Head of pack security. Can bench press 300 pounds. Cannot, apparently, form a coherent sentence in front of pretty omegas. Especially ones who smell like... He stopped himself. Like what? Yihan asked. Like everything I've ever wanted, Dohan's wolf supplied helpfully. Like lavender, Dohan said instead. And honey. And rain. Yihan's cheeks turned pink. It was devastating. Dohan felt like he'd been hit with a tranquilizer dart. This doesn't mean anything, Yihan said quickly, pulling his sleeve free. Dohan's hand mourned the loss. Scent compatibility is just biology. It doesn't mean we're. It doesn't mean I like you. I understand. You asked for an ugly omega. I know. I'm an idiot. A colossal idiot. The biggest. I've met rocks with better judgment. I would lose a chess game to a rock, probably. Another twitch of Yihan's lips. This time it lingered a fraction of a second longer. The officiant, who had been watching this entire exchange with the expression of someone enjoying a very good drama, cleared her throat. For the record, the scent bond has been initiated. Both parties will need to complete the 3-day bonding trial as per PAC law, or formally petition the council for dissolution. I'll need signatures from both of you. 3 days? They shouted in unison. The bonding trial, as Dohan learned from the hastily provided information packet, was a traditional practice requiring newly scent-bonded pairs to spend 3 days in close proximity to determine if their bond was strong enough for a permanent mating. Close proximity meant sharing a bonding suite. Sharing a bonding suite meant 1 apartment, 1 kitchen, 1 living room, and 1 bed, Dohan said, staring at the king-sized monstrosity in the center of the suite's bedroom. It was covered in rose petals. There were chocolates on the pillows. A bottle of champagne sat in an ice bucket on the nightstand, next to a card that read, "Congratulations on your new bond." "I'll sleep on the couch," Dohan said immediately. "Yes, you will," Yihan said, already claiming the bed by sitting on it with the territorial energy of a cat who had found a sunbeam. The bonding suite was actually quite nice. A modern apartment in the PAC's compound, stocked with food, entertainment, and enough scent-blocking ventilation controls to prevent them from being overwhelmed by each other's pheromones. Yihan immediately cranked the ventilation to maximum. "Is that necessary?" Dohan asked, watching the Omega assault the control panel like it had personally offended him. "Your scent is..." Yihan seemed to struggle with the word. "Distracting." "Distracting how?" Yihan shot him a look. "I'm not feeding your ego. My ego is currently in critical condition. It could use the nutrition." Yihan turned away, but not before Dohan caught the Omega pressing his lips together to suppress what might have been. Could it possibly have been a smile? "Progress," Dohan's wolf purred. "Shut up," Dohan told it. They spent the first evening in carefully negotiated détente. Yihan claimed the bedroom, the desk he had research to do, he informed Dohan, as though this were a business trip and not a bonding trial, and the left side of the refrigerator. Dohan got the couch, the TV remote, and the right side of the refrigerator. "Ground rules," Yihan said, standing in the living room with a notepad. He changed out of his ceremony robes into soft gray loungewear, and Dohan was trying very hard not to notice how the oversized sweater kept slipping off one shoulder. Rule 1. No alpha posturing. What does that mean? No growling. No scent marking. No puffing up your chest when you walk through doorways. "I don't puff up my..." He caught Yihan's flat stare. "Fine. No puffing." Rule 2. We maintain a minimum distance of 3 feet at all times. 3 feet. Got it. Rule 3. We do not discuss the bond. We do not acknowledge the bond. The bond is a biological accident, and we will treat it as such. Like a fender bender. Exactly like a fender bender. After 3 days, we petition the council for dissolution, we go our separate ways, and we never speak of this again. "Agreed," Dohan said. ignoring the way his wolf was howling in protest like someone had canceled its favorite TV show. Good. Yihan nodded crisply. I'm going to work on my dissertation. Don't bother me. He disappeared into the bedroom and closed the door. Dohan sat on the couch, stared at the ceiling, and tried to figure out how his plan to pick an ugly Omega had resulted in him being bonded to someone who looked like a deity in loungewear. His phone buzzed. Jae-sung. So? How'd it go? Did you get your ugly Omega? Dohan. I am in crisis. Jae-sung. Define crisis. Dohan. Photo of the bonding suite. Jae-sung. Wait. You actually bonded with someone? Dohan. He's beautiful, Jae-sung. He's the most beautiful person I've ever seen. He smells like heaven. He has a 4.0 GPA. He hates me. Jae-sung. Crying laughing emoji x17. Jae-sung. I told you. Jae-sung. I said you'd regret it. Jae-sung. How ugly is your ugly Omega on a scale of 1 to 10? Dohan. He's an 11. Minimum. My grandmother is a war criminal. Jae-sung. Crying laughing emoji x34. Jae-sung. This is the best day of my life and it's not even happening to me. Dohan threw his phone across the couch and groaned. From behind the bedroom door, he heard the faint sound of Yihan talking on his phone. He's insufferable, Minjun. He asked for an ugly Omega. He literally told his grandmother he wanted someone unattractive. Who does that? Yes, he's objectively handsome, but that's not the point. His scent? I don't want to talk about his scent. It's like, no, I'm not going to describe it. Fine. Cedar. Cedar and dark chocolate and something warm like. Stop laughing, Minjun. Dohan pressed his face into the couch cushion and made a sound that was not, technically, a whimper. It was going to be a long 3 days. Day 2 began with Dohan making breakfast. This was not an act of courtship. It was an act of survival. Dohan was the kind of person who became dangerous when hungry, and the bonding suite, despite being well-stocked, did not come with a personal chef. What he did not anticipate was Yihan emerging from the bedroom at 7 a.m., hair sleep mussed, sweater hanging off both shoulders now, blinking in the morning light like a baby owl who'd been personally victimized by the sunrise. Dohan nearly dropped the pan. What are you making? Yihan asked, voice rough with sleep, rubbing one eye with the sleeve of his sweater. Don't stare. Don't stare. For the love of eggs, Dohan said, and toast. And I made coffee. Yihan's sleepy eyes focused on the coffee mug Dohan had placed on the counter. Something shifted in his expression. A tiny crack in the wall of hostility. You made me coffee? I made coffee. There happened to be 2 mugs. It would be weird to only fill one. Yihan shuffled to the counter, picked up the mug, and took a sip. His eyes closed. A small, involuntary hum of appreciation escaped his lips. Dohan's wolf rolled over and showed its belly. This is good, Yihan admitted, sounding almost annoyed about it. My one useful skill. Making coffee? Being adequate at exactly one thing at a time. Today it's coffee. Yesterday it was ruining sacred ceremonies. Yihan snorted. Actually snorted. It was the most undignified, adorable sound Dohan had ever heard, and it came with a flash of genuine amusement in those honey-gold eyes. Sit down, Dohan said, sliding a plate of perfectly scrambled eggs and toast across the counter. Eat. You probably stayed up late working on your dissertation. How did you? I could see the light under the door until 2 a.m. Yihan looked at him for a moment, something unreadable in his expression. Then he sat down and ate. They ate in silence for a while, but it was a different kind of silence than the night before. Less hostile. More cautious. Like 2 cats who had been put in the same room and were slowly realizing the other one wasn't going to attack. Can I ask you something? Yihan said midway through his toast. As long as it's not about my plan, which I acknowledge was terrible. Why didn't you want a mate? Dohan paused, fork halfway to his mouth. He set it down. Honestly, no, lie to me. We're doing so well. The sarcasm was gentle this time, almost teasing. Dohan leaned back in his chair. I've spent my whole life being told what to do by the pack. When to fight, when to lead, when to stand down. I'm good at my job. I'm good at all of it, but it's never been about what I want. It's about what the pack needs. He paused. The one thing I thought I could choose for myself was who I spent my life with, or whether I spent it with someone at all. And the ceremony, it felt like even that was being taken from me. Yihan was quiet for a moment, coffee mug cradled in both hands. That's not a terrible reason, he admitted. High praise. Don't push it. But Yihan's eyes were softer now. I get it, though. My mother registered me because she thinks an unmated Omega is a waste. Her word, not mine. As if my entire worth is determined by whether some alpha decides I smell nice. You smell incredible, Dohan said. Before his brain could intercept the message, Yihan's cheeks went pink again. Dohan was starting to develop a problem with that blush. That's the bond talking, Yihan said quickly. Probably, Dohan agreed, though his wolf was staging a full-scale revolt against that statement. We should maintain distance, Yihan said, but he didn't move from his chair. We should, Dohan agreed and also didn't move. They sat there, not moving, not maintaining distance, eating breakfast in a silence that was becoming dangerously comfortable. Later that day, Dohan discovered that Yihan talked to himself when he worked. The bedroom door was open. Yihan had stopped closing it, which Dohan was trying not to read into, and Dohan could hear the Omega muttering at his laptop. No, that can't be right. The migration data from 2019 shows a clear pattern of... Ugh, where did I put that citation? I swear if I have to reread that entire Nakamura study. Oh, there it is. Wait, no. That's the wrong Nakamura. There are too many Nakamuras in this field. Dohan, stretched out on the couch pretending to watch TV, found himself grinning at the ceiling. Why are you smiling? Yihan called out, apparently having developed the ability to sense Dohan's expressions through walls. I'm watching a comedy, Dohan lied. The TV is off. Dohan looked at the TV. It was indeed off. He had forgotten to turn it on because he'd been too busy listening to Yihan argue with academic papers. I'm watching an internal comedy, he said. In my mind. You're weird. So I've been told. A pause. Then, from the bedroom, do you know anything about urban migration patterns? I know that people move to cities. Groundbreaking. Come here and hold the stack of papers while I reorganize my desk. Dohan was off the couch so fast he pulled something in his neck. He didn't care. Yihan had invited him into the bedroom. This was like being invited into the dragon's lair. Except the dragon was 5'7" and smelled like heaven. He stood in the doorway, suddenly aware that the 3-foot rule was about to be severely violated, and that he didn't care even a little bit. Yihan's desk was a catastrophe. Papers were stacked in precarious towers, sticky notes covered every available surface, and 3 different highlighters were uncapped and slowly dying. Hold these, Yihan said, shoving a stack of papers into Dohan's hands. Their fingers brushed. The jolt was back. That electric zing that made every hair on Dohan's arms stand up and his wolf do an actual somersault. Yihan froze. Dohan froze. They stood there, fingers barely touching, papers between them, staring at each other from a distance of approximately 1 foot. Well within the 3-foot exclusion zone, well within the danger zone, well within the territory of oh no, this is really happening. 3-foot rule, Yihan whispered. You invited me in here, Dohan whispered back. For the papers. Okay. Just the papers. Right? Stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like... Yihan's blush was nuclear now, spreading from his cheeks to the tips of his ears to the collarbones visible above his oversized sweater. Like you want to. Want to what? Dohan asked, and his voice had dropped into that low alpha register that he absolutely could not control, the one that made Omega's knees weak, the one that he had specifically promised not to use. I'm just holding papers, Yihan. The sound of his own name in Dohan's voice seemed to short-circuit something in Yihan's brain. The Omega's eyes went wide, his lips parted, and for one glorious, terrifying moment, the bond between them thrummed so loudly that Dohan was sure the neighbors could hear it. Then Yihan slapped a paper against Dohan's chest. Just hold them. Alphabetically. By author last name. Go. Dohan grinned. Progress. By day 3, the ground rules had evolved. The 3-foot rule had been quietly reduced to 2 feet, then 1 foot, then just don't literally stand on top of me. The no alpha posturing rule had been amended to allow minimal growling when the food delivery guy knocked on the door and Dohan's instincts decided the poor beta was a threat to his Omega. "I'm not your Omega," Yihan had said. But he'd also not moved away when Dohan had instinctively stepped between him and the door, which was interesting. The don't discuss the bond rule had been thoroughly shattered on day 2 when Yihan, in the middle of a rant about citation formatting, had casually mentioned that Dohan's scent was making it really hard to concentrate, and Dohan had responded that Yihan's scent was making it really hard to be a functional human being. And they had stared at each other for 17 seconds, Dohan counted, before Yihan threw a sticky note at his face and told him to go away. He did not go away. Day 3 found them on the couch together. Not touching, but close enough that Dohan could feel the warmth radiating from Yihan's body like a small, beautiful space heater. Yihan had his laptop balanced on his knees, typing furiously. Dohan was reading a security manual, or at least pretending to, while actually watching Yihan's reflection in the darkened TV screen. "You're staring," Yihan said, without looking up. "I'm reading. Your book is upside down." Dohan looked down. He flipped it. "I have a question," he said. "If it's about my scent again, it's not about your scent." He paused. "Though, for the record, you smell even better today. That's the bond deepening, you walnut. It happens during the trial period." "Did you just call me a walnut?" "If the shell fits." But Yihan's lips twitched. They'd been twitching a lot over the past 2 days, and Dohan was keeping a mental tally. Current count, 23 almost smiles. 3 actual smiles quickly suppressed. 1 laugh that Yihan had disguised as a cough. "My question," Dohan pressed on, "is, what happens after today?" Yihan's typing stopped. "After today, the trial period ends," he said carefully. "We petition the council for dissolution. The bond will fade over a few weeks. We go back to our lives." "Is that what you want?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy and honest and terrifying. Yihan finally looked at him. Those honey-gold eyes, which Dohan had spent 3 days memorizing, were guarded but not closed. There was something behind the walls, something that looked a lot like the same confusion, the same reluctant wonder that Dohan was feeling. 3 days ago," Yihan said slowly, "you asked your grandmother to find you an ugly Omega so you could avoid bonding." "I know. 3 days ago, I told my roommate I'd rather date a deep-sea octopus than an alpha. Harsh but fair. And now you're asking me what I want. As if 3 days is enough time to. It's enough time to know I don't want you to leave," Dohan said. The words were out before he could filter them, raw and real and stripped of all the bravado and stupid plans and defense mechanisms that Dohan had been building for years. He sat there, security manual in his lap, heart hammering, watching the most beautiful person he'd ever met decide whether to stay or go. Yihan stared at him. "You are," Yihan said, "the most infuriating, idiotic, stubborn, ridiculously attractive person I have ever met." "Thank you." "It wasn't a compliment. Parts of it were. You asked for an ugly Omega. I'm an idiot. We established this. You can't even hold a book the right way. I was distracted by your face. You growled at the delivery guy. He looked at you. He looked at you with his eyes, Yihan. That is what eyes are for. Not when they're pointed at you. Not when." Dohan cut himself off, breathing hard, and realized with a start that they'd moved closer during the argument. Much closer. The laptop had been pushed aside. They were facing each other on the couch, knees touching, faces inches apart. Yihan's scent was everywhere. Honey and lavender and rain and warmth and home, and Dohan's wolf wasn't howling anymore. It was quiet, settled, certain in a way that Dohan's conscious mind was still catching up to. "I don't want to dissolve the bond," Dohan said quietly. "I know I don't deserve it. I know I walked into that ceremony with the worst intentions. I know I insulted every Omega in existence with my stupid plan. But you, he swallowed. You are the most extraordinary person I've ever met, and if you give me a chance, even a small one, I will spend every day proving that I'm not the idiot who asked for an ugly Omega. You are the idiot who asked for an ugly Omega. But I could be a recovering idiot, a reformed idiot, an idiot on a journey of personal growth. Yihan's eyes searched his face for a long moment. Then, slowly, like the sun coming out from behind clouds, he smiled. Not a twitch, not a suppressed almost smile. A real, full, devastating smile that crinkled his eyes and showed his teeth and made Dohan's heart do something that was probably medically concerning. You're going to write me a formal apology, Yihan said. Done. To all Omegas. A public one. I'll take out an ad in the newspaper. You're going to read my dissertation. All 300 pages. I'll read it twice. And you're going to stop growling at delivery people. I will try my best. Not good enough. I will definitely stop growling at delivery people. Better. Yihan looked at him, and the softness in his expression was so unexpected, so unguarded, that Dohan felt like he'd been given a gift he hadn't earned. We take this slow, dating, like normal people, not because a ceremony told us to, but because we choose to. I choose to, Dohan said immediately. I choose you, enthusiastically, aggressively even. Tone down the aggressively. I choose you with moderate enthusiasm. Yihan laughed. A real laugh, bright and warm and surprised, like it had been startled out of him. It was the most beautiful sound Dohan had ever heard. Better than any symphony, better than any song, better than the sound of his enemies fleeing in defeat, though that was also a pretty good sound. Moderate enthusiasm, Yihan repeated, shaking his head. You're impossible. But you're smiling. I'm smiling at you, not because of you. That's the same thing. It absolutely is not. Dohan kissed him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't smooth. He basically just leaned forward and pressed his lips to Yihan's mid-sentence, which was either the most romantic or most reckless thing he'd ever done. And given his track record, that was saying something. For one horrible, eternal second, Yihan was frozen. Then the Omega's hand came up, fisted in the front of Dohan's shirt, and pulled him closer. The bond between them ignited, not like a spark, like a supernova. Every nerve in Dohan's body lit up with the rightness of it, the completeness, the overwhelming sensation of finally, finally, finally. Yihan's scent enveloped him like a warm blanket, and Dohan's wolf, for the first time in his entire life, was completely, perfectly, blissfully still. When they pulled apart, foreheads resting together, breathing the same air, Yihan whispered, "If you ever tell anyone I kissed the alpha who asked for an ugly Omega, I'll end you. Wouldn't dream of it. I'm serious. I have a reputation. Your secret is safe with me." Good. Yihan kissed him again, softer this time. Now go write that public apology. The news spread through the pack like wildfire. Kang Dohan, the unmateable alpha who had tried to game the system, had sent bonded with Seo Yihan, the Omega who hadn't wanted an alpha at all, and they had chosen to continue the bond. The reactions were varied. Grandmother Kang, when informed that her matchmaking had resulted in a successful bond, simply adjusted her glasses and said, "Of course it did. Did he really think I would let him pick an ugly Omega? There is no such thing as an ugly Omega. There are only alphas who are too stupid to see properly." She then requested that Dohan bring Yihan to Sunday dinner and wear something that makes him look less like a bouncer. Jae-sung, upon meeting Yihan for the first time, took one look at him, turned to Dohan and said, "So when you said you wanted an ugly Omega, the universe took that as a personal challenge and gave you this?" He then proceeded to befriend Yihan immediately, and the two spent 20 minutes bonding over their shared belief that Dohan was, fundamentally, a well-meaning disaster. Minjun, upon meeting Dohan, sized him up with the critical eye of a best friend evaluating a potential threat and declared, "You're acceptable. But if you make him cry, I will end your bloodline." Dohan, who outweighed Minjun by approximately 70 pounds of pure muscle, believed him completely. Yihan's mother called 7 times in one day, sobbing with joy, demanding grandchildren, and asking Dohan if he liked kimchi jjigae because she was making a pot big enough for the whole family. Dohan said he loved kimchi jjigae. Yihan mouthed traitor at him from across the room. The pack elders, upon learning that the bond trial had been successful, issued a formal statement that they were pleased and vindicated, and also hoping this means Kang Dohan will stop being a problem. Dohan framed the statement and hung it in his office. And Yihan, for his part, handled the situation the way he handled everything. With withering intelligence, reluctant affection, and a running commentary that could peel paint. I can't believe I'm dating someone who tried to avoid mating by requesting an ugly Omega, he said, 1 month into their courtship, sitting across from Dohan at a candlelit restaurant. He looked devastating in a navy sweater, and Dohan was having trouble remembering how to use a fork. Former idiot, Dohan corrected. Reformed. You growled at our waiter. He touched your hand when he gave you the menu. That's how menus are given, Dohan. There was lingering. I saw lingering. Dohan pressed his lips together. There was no lingering. There was a moment. The only moment was the one where you nearly stood up and flipped the table. I didn't flip the table. You gripped the table. I saw the wood crack. I have strong hands. You have possessive hands. Is that a complaint? Yihan's blush, the nuclear one, the one that spread from cheeks to ears to collarbones, made its appearance. Shut up and eat your steak. Dohan grinned. 3 months ago, he'd walked into a mating ceremony with the worst plan in the history of plans. He'd asked for an ugly Omega, been matched with the most beautiful person alive, insulted said person within 30 seconds of meeting them, and then fallen so completely, irreversibly, stupidly in love that his wolf had basically moved into Yihan's metaphorical backyard and built a permanent den. He looked across the table at Yihan, who was pretending to study the dessert menu but was actually watching Dohan's reflection in the glass behind them. Dohan had caught him doing this approximately 47 times and was keeping count, and thought, yeah, this is it. This is the one. Hey, Yihan. What? I love you. The menu dropped. Yihan stared at him, honey gold eyes wide, lips parted, looking for all the world like someone who'd just been handed the universe and didn't know what to do with it. You, Yihan's voice cracked. You can't just say that in a restaurant, over steak. I just did. We've been dating for 1 month, and I've loved you since you called me a walnut. Possibly before. Definitely since the moment I took that blindfold off and saw you. You didn't love me then. You were panicking. I was panicking because I loved you. My heart knew before my brain caught up. My brain is very slow, as we've established. Yihan's eyes were suspiciously shiny. He blinked rapidly and looked away, jaw tight, the way he did when he was feeling something too big to contain. I'm not saying it back, he said, voice thick. Okay. Not here. Not over steak. That's fair. I'll say it when I'm ready. I'll wait. It might take a while. I'm very patient. You growled at a waiter 5 minutes ago. Patient in love. Impatient with waiters who have wandering hands. Yihan made a sound that was halfway between a laugh and a sob, and when he looked back at Dohan, his eyes were bright with unshed tears and something else. Something warm and terrified and wonderful. You're an idiot, Yihan whispered. You're idiot, Dohan said. God help me, Yihan said, and reached across the table to take Dohan's hand. The bond hummed between them, warm and steady and certain, and Dohan thought that maybe, just maybe, getting exactly the opposite of what he'd asked for was the best thing that had ever happened to him. The end.